Yeah, I know you've been feeding. Let's just go ahead and get right to it. First of all, the funeral of John Lewis, it ain't about John Lewis. This has nothing to do with him. Barack Obama made that abundantly clear. We'll get to him in a moment. But the first thing to remember is this ain't about John Lewis. And truth be told, it's really not that much about this year's election. What this is about is what it's always been about, maintaining white supremacy. That means you have to always be teaching and reteaching Black people dysfunctional behavior. John Lewis is an icon, but he's not an icon for Black folks, definitely not for Black people who are demanding our power and who will have our empowerment. He's no icon for us. When the white media claims that John Lewis is an icon, when they're calling him an icon, they're talking about themselves. He's an icon to them. To the left-wing white supremacists and to the casual racist read white moderates, oh, he was an icon, all right, to them. The comforting, ultimate, non-threatening Negro. They were fine with John Lewis because he told Black folks, do not do the one thing that would actually bring white supremacy down, and that is to punish the white supremacists. So what they do is they're praising this guy and putting him on a pedestal because they know that Negroes are oversampled when it comes to watching television. So because of that, they know that at some point you're going to be seeing this garbage. So they plaster it wall to wall so you can't miss it. This is blatant propaganda being carpet bombed with imagery showing the white media saying complimentary things about this old Black man. And because of that, the white media knows that you've been conditioned that if they praise a Black person, why, you'll be so desirous to see the white media praising a Black person because 99.999% of the time they're doing nothing but attacking Black people. You'll see them praising this one Negro and decide, oh, so this is how we get the white media to say something complimentary about us. Oh, yeah, they know exactly how it works. This is image training. People happen to be conditioned through repetition. Showed them an image repeatedly of the one Black person being praised because he was deferential and he was completely and thoroughly obsequious in the presence of white supremacy. He was servile and submissive to white supremacy, and they want to make sure all you young Negroes out there, you want to be just like John Lewis, don't you? Well, I don't. This is about trying to use this as an opportunity to reinforce the good Negro training that white supremacy has been trying to instill for half a millennium. That's what this is about. Oh, sure, there were other things going on, but primarily, this is about all you Negroes out there who are talking about this empowerment, and you guys have been causing us trouble and forcing us to put laws in the books, and you actually been putting pressure on us that we have to at least make a show of doing something about a few of these race soldiers out here killing you. You guys have been putting pressure on us, and we need to show you John Lewis, because whenever these white supremacists with badges attack you, you need to do like John Lewis does. You need to thank them for their service. You certainly shouldn't be demanding punishment. That's out of bounds. You need to be a good, forgiven Negro, just like John Lewis, and you too can be praised by us after you're dead. In my last video essay, I showed you how John Lewis's campaign donations spiked in the last 4 years. I mean, he had been holding steady for the previous 28 years or so of his do-nothing career in Congress. For the last 4 years, they just spiked, and not just a little bit, but a lot, by almost 4 times. And why would that be the case? It's because of what we did. When Black folks said, you know what, we're opting out of this electoral fraud, Barack Obama has opened our eyes that voting, the few dead-ender holdouts who were still thinking that voting alone was going to be this panacea, they had to give up the ghost on that one. And it was young Black people who did it. And now you got the white powers that be trying to figure out, how do we find some civil rights retread, some fossil from a bygone era, see if he can get these younger Negroes on board. He should go ahead and tell them, I've spilled blood in Selma. And if John Lewis gets out there and we praise him for standing up for illegal aliens being detained at the border, or he stands up for gays at a nightclub being shot by some homicidal lunatic, as long as John Lewis does that and we praise him for it, why, these young Black people, they've seen plenty of documentaries on the white media networks, and They've also seen the books that we've written, the blatant written propaganda. And because they know that the only Negroes that the white media will actually praise without throwing a little bit of dirt on them are going to be these servile, submissive, do nothing civil rights retreads. Well, they'll look at that and say, oh, we want a pat on the head from the white media too, so we better get in line and be just like John Lewis. No, I'm afraid that the old days of psychic benefits, because that's the only thing you can get. White supremacy either offers tangible benefits or at the very least psychic benefits. That's where the pat on the head comes in. They ain't gonna give you nothing tangible, so here's a pat on the head. And you go ahead and you accept that pat on the head, and that's all you need. Now, the days of the Negroes and as a group thinking that a pat on the head is good enough, those days are behind us. And this is not even about white supremacy trying to put us on the payroll. We are demanding our own power and we'll be paying ourselves. John Lewis wasn't for that. And you know who else wasn't for that? Barack Obama. You see, these are the days when white supremacy is realizing that its grip on the black mass consciousness is slipping. More importantly than that, they know who it is who's prying their fingers off the minds of and the spines of black people, and that's the black media. We've been leading the charge. And because of the fact that this sets a horrifying precedent for white supremacy, that black folks are speaking and acting for themselves, and we are defining the right thing as being fighting white supremacy. And fighting it doesn't just simply mean we're going to march in the streets. It's a matter of you got to be fighting the white supremacists. You got to be punishing them. We should be punishing them. Taking that prerogative, well, what this means is the Negroes have abandoned the ballot box, but they haven't stopped demanding change. Now, when people demand change without the ballot box, that only means one thing. There's only one way that you get change without a ballot box. So that being the case, they got to get black folks back on board, get them back on the treadmill to nowhere. And the way that you do that is you take some do-nothing Negro, some fool who you've had in your pocket, some tool who you've had licking your boots ever since he was a young tool, and you go ahead and you give him some phony baloney praise and a couple of charitable write-ups in the white media, and you have some white folks pretending to fawn over him, and oh, he was an icon and a towering figure, and oh, he was just a giant, and oh, this guy did so much, and surely he will be remembered, blah, 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 blah. You go ahead and you do that. Black folks will see that and go, oh, I would need to be like this good Negroes over here so that I can get me a pat on the head too. And that's not working. The idea of the black folks are not voting, so that's the reason why they're in revolt. Well, at least the white supremacists accurately ascertain that particular fact, yes. When black folks abandon the ballot box, they're taken to the streets, but it ain't going to be to demonstrate and we're going to sing and chant and we shall overcome. No, those days are behind us. So since the Negroes are in revolt, you got to get them back voting again. Get them back on the treadmill. Get them back buying into a system that was never going to do anything for them. You got to get them back on board somehow. And that's what they're doing with John Lewis here. That's what this is about. At least one of the aspects. Now, another one is Barack Obama. You knew that that fool wouldn't be far behind. There were cameras in tow, so Barack Obama had to crawl out of whatever hole he had been hiding in. Whatever San Francisco bathhouse that he had been taking refuge in. I'm sure that him and Andrew Gillum were having a good time, hopefully with or without meth. Barack Obama decided that since there was some free food at the reception, and because a whole bunch of the white media was there, why he couldn't miss out on this photo op. He loves the attention. He's not in the White House anymore, but God dang it, since he's not going to be able to hand the keys to the White House over to a Democrat, his legacy has been ruined, and his page in history is being written by the black media. So he's hoping that the white media will give him some opportunities for some write-ups, and maybe, hopefully, this will overpower and drown out what we're saying. That's what he's hoping for. Expect to see Barack Obama shamelessly jump in front of cameras every chance that he thinks he can get, trying to make himself the center of attention. Since we're the ones writing his page in history and he realizes he can't stop that, he's hoping that the white media will give him some amount of counter programming to the truth that we're dropping about him. But when he was at John Lewis's funeral today, spouting a whole bunch of gibberish, he decided that he would also make it a little bit political. This is the time, since he didn't really do anything as far as policy went when he was in the White House, he figures now that he's out of the White House and doesn't have to fear failing to get a second term, now it's time for him to go ahead and say something halfway substantive. but not in favor of black people. His first proposal was that there should be an end to the filibuster. Well, what did he want the end to the filibuster for? Well, because he feels that the filibuster is a Jim Crow relic. Yeah, Barack Obama's real bothered about Jim Crow, don't you know? But he wants an end to the filibuster so that there can be statehood for DC. Now, the rate that black folks are being gentrified out of DC, what that means is soon you're going to have a state that's going to have a majority white population. If this asinine proposal ever became real, it won't. But it just goes to show Barack Obama showing the desperation of the Democratic establishment. He's also supporting statehood for Puerto Rico. Notice that as a matter of Barack Obama's laying out what the Democrats' neuroses and phobia is. They've already decided, oh God, these Negroes, they're totally and thoroughly off the reservation now. They've left the plantation and they burned the big house down behind them. So we better try to figure out how we can engineer another Latino enclave. That's what this proposal about. We need statehood for Puerto Rico. This is about giving a freebie to the Latino vote. Let's go ahead and see if we can put together this non-black voter coalition. That's what it's about. We're going to have this voter coalition, but since we can't depend on the black folks, they've clearly shown that they've broken bad on us. Let's see if we can boost our Latino support. And statehood for Washington, D.C. So you got this city, which truth be told is actually a medium-sized city, not even a great big one. But you're going to have statehood for Washington, D.C.? Really? But this just shows the level of desperation. This is what happens when black folks upset the political apple cart. You start getting all sorts of bizarre, insane, delusional nonsense. Let's take a city and make it into a state. Why? Because we need something. Now, what he didn't talk about was, how do we boost those black voter numbers? He didn't use this as a platform to say, well, you know what? Black folks have gotten the short end of the stick for 500 years, and everybody else has been given reparations. It seems to me that the time is now for reparations. He didn't say that. He wasn't talking about how do we galvanize the black vote. He wasn't talking about how do we get black folks to get some tangibles to motivate them to go to the polls. He wasn't talking about boosting the actual voter numbers. Instead, he's talking about, let's go ahead and do some gerrymandering and invent some new, preferably Democratic districts. And we'll see if we can get some numbers that way. This is just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. It doesn't change anything, but then again, that's the entire point. The point of white supremacy is to perpetuate itself. This is not about changing anything. This is about sustaining the status quo by alternative means. But at least the white media clearly picked up on exactly what it was Obama was trying to do. His little comments about getting rid of the filibuster and statehood for DC and the PR. This was Barack Obama trying to figure out how to use John Lewis's funeral as a means to help jumpstart Joe Biden's political campaign. By the way, everybody's probably noticed, of course, that here we are. It's about to be August, and Joe Biden still hasn't figured out who his running mate's going to be. What does that tell you? What that tells you is we have left these guys with no good options. No good options for white supremacy. We left them with no options that allow them to maintain the system of white supremacy. Now, they could preserve themselves, but I've always told you, survival is at the top of your totem pole of values. Survival is at the top of your list of priorities. Survival tops the list for you. For the white supremacist, survival is a third or fourth. Their absolute and total dominance and supremacy, that's at the very top. And if they cannot have that, well, survival, that's going to take a back seat. It ain't going to be even in the second or third spot. Try fourth or fifth. That's how the white supremacists speak. That's how the white supremacists think. So what would be an easy decision, the logical, natural decision for you, for them, they're like, hell no, we ain't doing that, because everything that they do is centered around their power and dominance. Not merely their power, but their absolute dominance. Everything is geared around that. Anything that would end or even so much as slightly diminish their dominance. They are hyper aware and hypersensitive about it, ultra hypersensitive about it. So they're not merely afraid of what they see, they're afraid of what they even imagine could be a threat to them. That's the reason why when J. Edgar Hoover, shortly after the assassination of Dr. King, he was putting together his little report about who the next Negro Messiah could be, and he said Fred Hampton. Fred Hampton's going to be the next big problem that we have. Now, Fred Hampton wasn't even really causing them problems like that, but the very fact that this guy could be an issue on the horizon, they were like, Todd, it's best that Fred Hampton be stopped now before he goes any further. Sure, he's not a threat to us, and after we send in the Chicago Death Squad, he never will be. But of course, you now have to deal with the sons and daughters of Fred Hampton. You got to deal with the sons and daughters of Kwame Ture. I mean, those real down to the ground for the struggle, down to the ground for Black power activists, those guys, not the John Lewis type. His type is going away, burning out. And no amount of flowery, sloppy, wet kisses from the white media is going to breathe life back into that dead horse. And no amount of visits and empty, wind-blown, hot air speeches from a bunch of do-nothing bureaucrats like Barack Obama, that ain't going to help you. Oh, Bill Clinton, he had a lot to say. He decided to throw some mud at Kwame Ture, i.e. Stokely Carmichael, praising John Lewis. He took the path of Dr. King, not the path of Stokely Carmichael. That's Bill Clinton for you. As far as he's concerned, you niggers didn't vote for my wife, and I haven't heard the end of it, and you humiliated me, and I want to let you know I know exactly why you did it, and then because of that, I know I'm going to drop dead in the next 6 months, but I'm going to spit at y'all with my last breath. Well, that's fine. We are going to be writing Bill Clinton's page in history as well, so that's fine. But you see what they're doing with this. This is neither the time nor the place to be talking about filibustering or any sort of political maneuvering. They didn't do that with John McCain. Yeah, but the thing about John McCain, of course, was they figured that John McCain's funeral wouldn't really get the attention of Black folks. There would be no reaffirming of white supremacy's influence over the Black mass consciousness if you pull some stunt at a John McCain funeral. So as far as they were concerned, ain't much to be done about that, so why even bother? The audience for these remarks is twofold. It's any Black folks who are gullible enough, weak-willed enough, weak-minded enough to fall for this guff, and the other one happens to be the non-Black, the would-be non-Black Democratic voter coalition that they're hoping to put together, this Frankenstein monster of a constituency. That's the reason why they're reaching out to anyone and everyone except for Black folks. And please don't think that Barack Obama's appearance at the funeral was missed by the LGBT community. They've always looked at Barack Obama as being the best thing that's ever happened to them since Harvey Milk. So the guys aren't even trying to hide it. At this point, we've put them in such a position, put so much heat on them, there's absolutely no incentive for them to be oblique about it. Come straight up the middle. This is all about Joe Biden. This is all about how Barack Obama is going to be able to benefit and advantage Joe Biden in the election. Oh, why he just changed the landscape of a Joe Biden presidency. Well, they're already measuring the drapes for Joe Biden's Oval Office. A tad premature, I would say, but they're laying it out. That's what this is about. But that's what you get when you have these clowns, these bootlicks from the Black misleadership class. White supremacy's little cherry-picked, hand-picked tools. The thing that matters most in the world to them is not survival, damn sure not the survival of Black people. They have nothing but contempt for the survival of Black people. And truth be told, they're not terribly bothered about their own survival. Look at Herman Cain. Herman Cain kicked the bucket today. Last month, this man, who, by the way, has been in poor health for years, he survived cancer barely. He's one of the main people who the doctors have been saying, if you're somebody who's got some sort of serious disease, or you like cancer or like lupus or one of those serious diseases, you don't need to be fooling around when it comes to going out into crowds. And what did Herman Cain do last month? Here he is with his little Blacks Voices for Trump organization. Basically, a bunch of white guys put some money in his pocket and say, we need you to be our front Negro. And Herman Cain said, sure will. I've been doing it all my life. Why stop now? And what happened was last month he went to Trump's rally in Oklahoma or whatever the hell it was. And he was trying to get out there and stump for some Negroes to vote for Trump. Why? I don't know. And here he is, a whole bunch of people all around him. What could possibly go wrong? As it turns out, everything. Because shortly after he went to that rally, he wound up coming down with COVID-19. And he's been battling it for the last month or so, these last few weeks. And now, today, Herman Cain's dead, because showing his loyalty, his absolute loyalty to his white paymasters, whether you are trying to befriend and get a pat on the head from the left arm of white supremacy or the right arm of white supremacy, makes no difference. You still got to ignore black people's interests, and you got to boost the interests of either non-black minorities, which is what the left arm of white supremacy demands that you do, or you boost the interests of the dominant society, preferably Caucasians, over black people. So they got you covered either way. You got two groups of Negroes paid to prioritize everyone's interests except for ours. And Herman Cain, he was so desirous, so desperate, so eager, so jolly in the behind to get a pat on the head from Agent Orange that he deliberately and knowingly threw himself into a situation, denied the reality, where every doctor who actually has any sense has said, especially if you got cancer, one of those diseases that wrecks your immune system, one of those diseases that makes it where your body is now greatly weakened, you don't need to be anywhere near one of those gatherings. You see, that's the reason why Herman Cain went and Rush Limbaugh didn't. You see, Herman Cain, he had to show, I'm loyal unto death. Well, I guess he figured I'm willing to give my life to get a pat on the head from these good white supremacists. And that's exactly what he wound up having to do. As I keep saying, being a bootlick, that's a career track that doesn't come with a retirement plan. Though in Herman Cain's case, it did come with a burial plot. But this is the level of denial of reality that you have to engage in if you're going to call yourself befriending either the right or the left arms of white supremacy. But for the black bootlick, there is no such thing as stooping too low and risking your life. Well, it doesn't matter if you're Herman Cain deliberately walking into a viral pit, into this epidemiological nightmare. You go ahead and risk your life to get that pat on the head. And John Lewis, doesn't matter if it's a bunch of racists with badges who bust your head open with a billy club, that's okay, as long as I get that pat on the head. We're dealing with individuals who have profound mental disorders. These people are mentally deranged. These people are not mentally well at all. These are the individuals who the white media props up and heaps praise on and wants you to emulate. They want you to emulate these suicidal codependents. That's what individuals like Cain and Lewis are. These guys are so determined, so devoted, so single-mindedly obsessed with getting a pat on the head from the dominant society, they'll throw away their lives and yours too. And the white media wants you to copy that. They want you to imitate that. That's the whole goal here. These guys are suicidal. They want you to be suicidal too, because white supremacy, as far as they're concerned, there is no scenario that they've laid. They got a number of contingencies and they have a number of possible outcomes to the gradual wearing down and the gradual grinding down of the former slaves of this country. They come up with all sorts of scenarios that they've dreamt up of how this is going to go. But not one of those scenarios ends with black people still around. There is no scenario that white supremacy has drawn up that allows for us to still be here when it's all said and done. Every single one of the scenarios they've drawn up ends with us utterly annihilated. So they go ahead and they prop up and praise and promote and push these individuals with profound mental problems, irredeemable mental problems, and they let these guys get in front of the cameras. And they want these guys to be who you think of as responsible, good Negroes, because they put their survival last, and they put getting the praise and adulation of the white powers that be first. And just to show you that even death wouldn't stop these guys from trying to get a pat on the head, John Lewis, clearly showing that he wants a pat on the head whether he's alive to appreciate it or not. He wrote a so-called editorial that the New York Times published, but he apparently gave instructions that he wanted this editorial to be published after he was dead. It was supposed to be published on the day of his funeral, showing you that John Lewis is like, even if I am not here to get the praise, I still want you to give it anyway because I spilled blood in Selma. So he wrote this editorial. Basically, it's nothing more than John Lewis pretending to be a martyr for what I don't know. A martyr for white supremacy, a martyr for anti-black racism, a martyr for black oppression. He was a martyr for that. He was ready to lay down his life so that black people would not fight white supremacy. That he was willing to do. But the title of his editorial, Together You Can Redeem the Soul of Our Nation. Didn't Malcolm tell you about the Negroes using words like we, our, and us when talking about the United States or talking about any of the trappings of white supremacy? Didn't he warn you about that?
Yep.
But Lewis, he wrote this op-ed, and he should have called it How Not to Fight White Supremacy. That's what he should have called it. But there's a reason why he chose this title in particular. He's showing you the mentality of the buck-broken Negro, the mentality of the brain-dead bootlick. He's showing it to you. I warned you about these black folks who cast themselves in the role of a would-be savior, because that's how one of the camouflages, that's one of the guises and one of the propagandistic ploys that white supremacy has been trying to use to justify the extermination of black people around the world and here in the U.S. White supremacy is not wiping out these people. It's attempting to save them, to elevate them. White supremacy, well, you shouldn't see the white supremacists as being on a genocidal march across the globe. Why? The white supremacists, they see themselves as being saviors, and they hope that you'll go for that line of crap. So instead of going, oh, these guys are a bunch of bloodthirsty genocidal lunatics and we got to stop them no matter what, instead you'd be going, well, they're just misunderstood. Why? We just have to reason with them. They just think that they're saving us. Man, they ain't trying to save nothing except for their own dominance. That's the only thing the white supremacists are trying to save. But the lie that they try to indoctrinate people with, and that people like Lewis help to spread and proliferate, is the lie that the white supremacists see themselves as being saviors of the world. They're just misguided would-be saviors of the world. They're on a mission to save the world and elevate the world. Elevate it to what? The white supremacists didn't have a damn thing 500 years ago. They were so eager to get out of Europe that they were still flooding into the country up until the 1940s, and that's just from Europe alone. So please don't tell me that the white supremacists had created something great in Europe. They didn't. If they had, why the hell were they trying to all leave? They were flooding out of Europe as fast as they could get out. So what the hell are they elevating? Who are they saving? This is like a thief who doesn't have a penny to his name stealing your home, throwing you out of your own house and stealing all of your possessions, and then him telling you that he wants to help raise you up to the lifestyle that he's got. The lifestyle that he stole from you, that he got off of your hard work and your effort. He stole everything you have, and he's trying to act like somehow he earned it. And why? I can teach you to be just like me. Oh, you mean that I should be a bloodthirsty, genocidal lunatic, stealing, raping, robbing, pillaging, and sowing salt upon the earth like you did? Well, just don't do it to me. That's the white supremacists. That's what they're doing. This lie, this fraud about how the white supremacists see themselves as a savior. But what also goes unsaid is that white supremacy, through religion and through these cherry-picked black bootlicks, white supremacy has conditioned black people to also be on their own little crusade, their own little misguided would-be mission. Black folks, under the guise of religion in most cases, a lot of us see ourselves as being on a mission to redeem the white supremacists. Oh, we're going to redeem the dominant society. We must save the white supremacist souls. And the white media is fine with you having that delusion, because as long as you are operating under that mental derangement, the one thing you're not going to be doing is punishing the white supremacists. White supremacy understands exactly what it must have in order to maintain and perpetuate its position. What that means is you got to make sure that there's nobody who dedicates themselves to destroying white supremacy. And that means you're going to have to take the people who you have arranged and ordered your society to have them at the bottom. That underclass must be made into accomplices, willing accomplices in their own oppression. First order of business is you got to teach them whatever you do, you better not be out here fighting us. Oh, you can give your objections. You can try to get some phony sympathy. And a lot of black folks do that simply because they want attention. That's fine. We'll give you a pat on the head. A select few of you might get some crumbs, small ones. But don't you ever go thinking that you're going to go raising your hands, massa. You bet not ever think that. Don't go getting uppity now. That has been a central tenet. And a mental tenet of making sure that black folks don't get out of line is why you can reason with these white supremacists. Why we must see ourselves on a moral crusade just like Jesus. And we're going to save these white supremacist souls. That's part of what happens. See, black people understand fully well. We understand better than anyone else the white supremacist delusion, the lie, the fraud that they push, that they are saviors of the world. And so because we cannot be part of the dominant society, a lot of black folks have in turn internalized this perverted, demented black version, this black analog for the white supremacist savior mission, that the Negroes are on a mission of his, the Negro is also on a mission of his own. The white supremacist is trying to be savior to a world that really doesn't need him to save it. They need to be saved from the white supremacists, but they don't need the white supremacists to save them from anything other than himself. But black folks are going to save these white supremacists, never mind the fact that the white supremacists don't want to be saved. They don't want to be redeemed. So when John Lewis uses phrases like, you can redeem the soul of our nation, they understand full well. There's a lot of black folks who will look at that and go, and that's right, we can redeem massa. We can redeem these white supremacists. We can redeem massa. And then massa's gonna love us. They understand exactly the buttons that are being pushed. John Lewis is expressing exactly what the twisted, sick ethos of the black bootlick is. This for them is what counts as moral clarity. Together you can redeem the soul of our nation. But when he says together, who's he talking about? Oh, he's talking about all the folks in America. Never mind the fact that the vast majority of people in the United States are fine with white supremacy. They want to uphold and maintain white supremacy. And even the people, some of these non-whites who are not at the top of the racial pyramid, they're fine with it, as long as they're not in the position of black people. They're just trying to find a comfortable place under white supremacy. But then again, John Lewis wasn't really talking about white supremacy. He was talking the same old empty hot air about how we need to love each other and the little children one day. Well, he's doing his best Dr. King, I Have a Dream impersonation. He knew that part of Dr. King's spiel, but when Dr. King was talking about black folks coming to Washington to get our check and talking about why we cannot wait, and when Dr. King, near the end of his life, was starting to talk that real stuff, see, John Lewis don't repeat that because he knows that his white benefactors, the ones who gave him such big campaign contributions the last 4 years before he kicked the bucket, he knows they wouldn't like that. So he knows exactly what the red lines are, and he ain't crossing it. He ain't even going to come close to it. Forget about sticking a toe over it. He's going to get 100 miles away from those red lines because he doesn't want white. He understands that white supremacy is ultra hypersensitive about anything that could even remotely be a threat. So he understood he had to do the most to convince massa, I ain't going to cause you no trouble, massa. I ain't going to cause no trouble. I remember when you made me spill blood in Selma. He understands that. He gets it. And by the way, I know that the moral cowards and the intellectually dishonest, even now, the same ones who were whining with my last video essay about, it's too soon, too early. And then when you press them on it, they say, you shouldn't be saying this at all. You shouldn't be saying none of this ever. Basically these would-be undercover, these stealth bootlick operatives, these individuals, they'll be doing the same thing on this one. And when we continue to go ahead and make sure that the white media is not allowed to rewrite John Lewis's shameful betrayal of the black community, they'll be the main ones saying you shouldn't be doing it either. I fully anticipate them, and that's fine. As far as they're concerned, John Lewis is gone and Herman Cain's gone too. Woohoo! That means that there's 2 extra job openings for any Negro who's willing to bow and scrape before the dominant society. If you're willing to get out there and deny reality, why, there could be a nice little spot for you. There's 2 job openings available among the black misleadership class. or among the freelance bootlick class. There's job openings. That's how they see it. There's a chance for you to get in there. All you got to do is deny reality one way or the other. Either you say, we all the sames, or you go ahead and say there ain't no racism. One's the same as the other, because neither one is talking about punishing white supremacy. So keep in mind, there's a lot of black folks out there from across the spectrum who are observing today's events, and they're also hoping to angle some sort of advantage for themselves. So there's going to be a lot of sucking up going on. You better believe that the Jamila LaPukes and the Angela Ryes with lettuce and tomatoes on the side and the rest of these clowns, they're going to be trying to find something. Why Jason was posting on his Twitter feed about how Michelle Obama is apparently going to be having a podcast. See, this is something people need to understand. Now the black folks have shown that, hey, we're coming for what's ours. They got to find a way to calm these angry Negroes down. Well, they ain't going to listen to John Lewis. Maybe they'll listen to the former First Lady. At the very least, hopefully she can get out there and galvanize a few of these would-be shea butter clowns that they're trying that old gender war tactic. You can see they're beating the drum about that. That's what this is really about. Well, the you go girl age is over and dead. The black media killed it. And no amount of former First Ladies, no amount of trying to live vicariously through a dark-skinned black woman, which is what Michelle Obama represents. They know that's why she has a special place under the white media. Sure, it's good. It's good that she's a non-white woman, but the best part is she's dark-skinned. And that hopefully is going to be something that they can play on. See, Barack Obama didn't get somebody who was light, bright, and dang near white. Why, he got himself a dark-skinned sister, and you better listen to every word that she says. Yeah, because she didn't really have that much to say about all these black folks getting killed in the streets. Listen to her say what? What the hell's Michelle Obama got to say? No more than John Lewis. And before you clowns decide you're going to tee up your BS talking points in my comment section, you better understand something. John Lewis didn't do one damn sit-in for all of the black victims of white supremacist violence the last 7 years. He didn't have a damn thing to say about any of them other than tisk tisk. He wasn't doing no sit-ins for them. Oh, he wasn't on fire in the House of Representatives for any of them. No pushing and demanding for any laws for them. Oh no, he would march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. When it comes time to start talking about how we're going to punish these white supremacists with badges, all of a sudden John Lewis forgot where he put his walking shoes at. He put his tennis shoes somewhere he misplaced them. So yeah, he'll show up on the Edmund Pettus Bridge because that's all about him. He knows whenever the white media talks about that, oh, there's going to be some more attention for me because I spilled blood in Selma. It's like a freaking song, a bad one. It's a golden oldie that never gets old for him, but it got old for us a long time ago. That damn thing was played out with the first rotation. But John Lewis, that's what he's on. A lot of folks are trying to figure out how to leverage this incident, this event for their own benefit. And our job is to make sure that they don't take us off target. John Lewis did not do a damn thing for our tangibles. So as far as I'm concerned, I am going to give him as much support as he gave us. Barack Obama is vainly hoping that the white media is going to give him coverage, and he'll hopefully keep up a steady drumbeat of, oh, I was at this funeral and I showed up at this event and I got this foundation and you're not going to get rid of me so easily. And because of that, I figure if I do enough of these appearances, why, hopefully that will balance out all the truth that this black media is telling about me. And, they're really making me look bad. And my legacy is going to be just this failed biracial who was in the White House, didn't do nothing except for let the white supremacists run roughshod over black folks. And I can't let that be my legacy. My legacy must be one of triumph. And if the black community won't lie for me, well, that's fine. I'll just lie about myself then. I'll go ahead and take care of it myself. I'll do the heavy lifting on this little bit of fiction. And that's what Barack Obama's out there doing. The white media thinks that this is going to be a launch pad. Hopefully, this is going to be the beginning of the pivot, turning black folks back toward a political process that has shown that it will not and cannot put supplies of what we need This is going to get black folks to stop the uprising and get you off that tangibles thing. And you start talking more like John Lewis. And they've been trying this crap, these phony baloney false starts. Oh, this is going to be the beginning of black folks turning back toward the good Negro narrative. We're going to get them off all this angry black empowerment stuff and get them turned back toward the black misleadership's direction. We're going to go ahead and start leading them around by the nose again. They've been trying that time and again, telling themselves this is the beginning, this is it. You can see these Negroes are getting on board. Why? They know that black empowerment's a bad idea, and they know because we had some of our hand-picked Negro bootlicks telling them that, and they're going to go for it because these black folks are simple-minded, and that's all that's going on here. We see right through them. We see how Barack Obama is basically sending up the trial balloon. Our Democrats, these black folks, they're getting serious now, and all of our little ploys to try to trick them, it ain't working. So time to go ahead and let's start the steady drumbeat. We need to start catering to some non-black constituencies. We know the Latinos see themselves as Europeans, and most of them think of themselves as closet Republicans, but let's go ahead and see if we can reach out to them and do something, try to get something going here, get something going. That's what he's attempting to do. You better believe he didn't just show up there on his own and spout that gibberish for nothing. He was under orders. This is what the Democrat establishment wants. At some point, it's a matter of these black folks refuse to get back on board on the treadmill. Let's start doing some pushing real heavy for that non-black voter coalition. Let's start pushing real heavy for that. And Barack Obama is the beginning of that process. Will it be enough in time to save Joe Biden? Hardly. I think Joe Biden understands, and the white media understands. I posted how CNN already reported that Joe Biden's support among young black voters in particular is already lower than Hillary Clinton's was this time 4 years ago. So when it comes to black voters, Joe Biden's in a far weaker position than Hillary Clinton was. But it's not even the election that matters. What matters is what's going on in the streets, because we showed what could happen the last month and a half without a single election being held, without gaining a single seat in Congress or a single political office, period. You see how laws and such got changed. What does that tell you about the nature of democracy under white supremacy? White supremacy only is concerned with one thing and one thing only: who can bring the greatest amount of force to bear. Dr. John Henrik Clarke said it, and it's still true. There has not been democracy in this country, and this country white supremacy could not stand a single hour if the democracy actually existed here. White supremacy is only concerned with, we're going to ignore you guys, and if you guys decide that you don't like that, well, then we got a bunch of goons with guns and badges, and it's going to be their job to keep you in line through unrestrained, unchecked violence. When the black folks made it clear, well, in that case, then we're prepared to defend ourselves to whatever level necessary. Now the white supremacists are like, about that unrestrained violence thing, we sure would hate for that to become habit forming. So we're going to go ahead and put some laws in the books, and we'll take a knee, and please, let's be reasonable. So you understand that this is white supremacy attempting to dictate to us who our icons are. If it's important to white supremacy, it better be important to you. That's the message that they're delivering here. Well, white supremacy can choose their heroes, who are nothing more than the monsters and villains of history and the present day. They damn sure don't get to choose ours. We choose who our icons are. And qualification number one, if you want to be a black icon, if you want to be an icon in the eyes of the former slaves, I better see where you put in some work to fight white supremacy. I better see where you put in some work to punish white supremacy. And punishment does not mean that you gave them a talking to. Punishment means that they understand that they have been punished. Punishment also means that you have made sure that you have punished them to the extent where it acts as a deterrent to any others. See, words, sitting here and doing the old, I spill blood in Selma, and you guys, y'all shows his means, that doesn't change anything. That doesn't deter anyone. Kwame Ture, formerly Stokely Carmichael, he understood what it took in order to fight the white supremacists, to make sure that they were punished. Malcolm X understood what it meant to deter the white supremacists. He understood what a viable deterrent to white supremacy was. Huey Newton understood what a viable deterrent to white supremacy was. And the black media understands what a viable deterrent to white supremacy is. And that's not going to change. Doesn't matter how many of these mush-mouth, cross-eyed, knock-kneed, buck-toothed scumbags that they put in front of the cameras. That's not going to matter to us. You can get all of these weak, sniveling, spineless jellyfish put in front of the camera. You can heap all the accolades and laudatory praise on them that you want. It means nothing to us. White supremacy does not get to choose who our icons are. They don't get to tell us what our priorities are. They don't get to tell us who has represented us well and who has represented us not at all. They don't get to dictate that. We do. We determine who that is, not them. And as for John Lewis's little op-ed, that's very cute. You can redeem the soul of our nation. Well, I can understand why that would be a priority for him. Redeem the soul of our nation. Well, yeah, I can see why he would be very concerned about redeeming the soul of the nation, considering that he sold his 50 years ago so that he could get a pat on the head from the left arm of white supremacy. That's what happens when you sell your soul. You start deciding, well, since my soul is gone, never to return, I might as well concern myself with the souls of others. Well, don't worry about our souls, okay? John Lewis ain't got to worry about ours. He never was concerned to begin with. We're taking care of our souls just fine without him. We are doing what John Lewis lacked the character and courage to do. And that is, we are fighting white supremacy with the goal of making sure that it is punished thoroughly to our satisfaction. Redeem the soul of this nation. Nah, you do that. You waste your time doing that. I won't. And nobody with any sense does either. I don't waste my time on fool's errands. This nation never had a soul to begin with. It was an empty husk. White supremacy does not have anything other than viciousness and brutality and death. That's all white supremacy has. There is no soul there. White supremacy is an empty, pale void. And we're not going to be able to fill that, and I wouldn't waste my time trying to. But this is what John Lewis comes up with. Redeem the soul of the nation. No, forget about that. We're going to spend our time doing something that's truly worthwhile. And that is redeeming the power of the former slaves. That I'm willing to do. I'll give my life for that. So that's pretty much all I have to say about the funeral for John Lewis. The only funeral that I'm interested in is the funeral of white supremacy, to make sure that it's buried once and for all. And to say that day that we get to stand over the grave of white supremacy. And I'll do it with a smile on my face, knowing that the black media did its part to put white supremacy in its grave once and for all. That's the only funeral that I'm interested in attending. That's the only funeral that I'm interested in hearing about. And it ain't going to be the white media giving coverage of it. It'll be the black media covering how we buried the greatest evil the world has ever seen once and for all.